1 week ago, Bangladesh were bowled out for 54 in their warm-up game against Cricket Australia 11. 54. Next week, they play Australia in Darwin. Nobody gave them a chance. Nobody was even talking about them. People were talking about Australia putting up a second-string team. And then they walk into that test match, bowl out Australia for 198, posted 426 in reply, and then go on to win by 9 wickets. Some say it's almost an innings defeat. Tamim Iqbal calls it the greatest test win in Bangladesh cricket history. Actually, he called it the greatest win in Bangladesh history. I tend to agree with that. I think it was Bangladesh's best win of all time. And all while that was happening in Australia, Devdutt Padikkal puts up 167 playing in as a sub for Sai Sudarshan. And Manav Suthar takes a 10-for in only his third test match. India go on to beat Sri Lanka without Bumrah. One of the best weeks of test match cricket in living memory. Welcome back to the In Between Overs podcast. I'm Taran.
And I'm Ishaan.
All right. Which was the bigger story? India beating Sri Lanka with half of their frontline players missing, or Bangladesh registering their greatest win in cricket history?
Look, I think easy answer. It is Bangladesh. I think they were incredible. Again, when they played Australia, a famous podcasting duo said, we don't even know their names, or we won't even need to know their names. Well, I think you got it now. Bangladesh literally demolishing a full Australian squad. Some key players. I think cumulatively, I don't know how many thousands of wickets that quartet has under them versus Bangladesh's new bowling lineup. So definitely, I think in comparison, Bangladesh win was incredible. But we can't, shy away from the fact that India, was under pressure. The World Test Championship, is coming up. Points are really, at a premium right now. And they did have a very comprehensive win in Sri Lanka with some new players, as you mentioned, without their key bowler Bumrah. So I don't think, we should downplay India's victory, but Bangladesh's win, as you mentioned, Taran, the best in their cricketing history.
Yeah, hands down, Bangladesh beating Australia is the story of the week. There's no question about that. We'll definitely talk about the India-Sri Lanka game. But nobody saw this coming. Everybody thought, including myself, that Bangladesh may win a session or 2 or 3, but there's no way they're winning a test match. They're playing in conditions that generally suit Australia for the most part. And they rock up to this game and comprehensively beat Australia. There wasn't even a session that Australia won. Australia didn't even have a sniff the entire game. They were chasing the 8 ball the entire game. Bangladesh always were ahead. They started with their foot on the neck of Australia and they ended there. They did not once let go. And that was amazing to see because usually, and we were talking about this offline, usually in games like these, you see a little bit of a back and forth. You see a slip up by, let's call it the lesser nation. And then you see the stronger test team finding a way back, clawing their way back. Bangladesh did not even give them a chance to do that. It was phenomenal. They were better with the ball on day one. They made the best use of the conditions. They came out with the bat. They had a plan of attack. Each batter got into a score. They played in partnerships. They had partnerships throughout the bottom of the order, the tail enders, as we like to call it in our beautiful game. They found a way to stick it out there. They found a way to just stay with the other batter, Mehidy Hasan, who played a phenomenal innings there. Bangladesh ends up with a lead more than 200 and then comes out with the ball in the third innings. Didn't allow Australia to build strong partnerships. And they were consistent with their length and lines. The fast bowlers built off of their good work in the first innings. And the spinners found some purchase on that wicket as it worn out. And then, they cleaned up the 50 runs. It was funny because they needed to chase 2 runs more than what they got bowled out for in that warm-up game. And I was joking around with a friend of mine, letting him know, hey, like, Australia have a chance given the fact that Bangladesh got bowled up for 54, but they there wasn't even a chance there. Like they completely annihilated that target. And I agree with the fact that this was pretty much an innings victory.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think you may raise some very good points. And if we just focus on, for example, Bangladesh's first inning score, you mentioned the batting. We have to give a shout out to the opening batting. That I think really held it down from the runs perspective. We talked about, Tanzid Hasan making that century. Incredible, incredible runs. But also for amount of balls he's eating up, almost 200 balls. That's a good amount for, some of the more experienced bowlers that Australia have. And then as you mentioned as well, the other batsmen coming in clutch. You had Huck and Shanto coming in and making, some good runs. Shanto with a good captain's knock, a solid 84. I think he played like around 130 runs, 130 balls as well. It was one of those performances where you knew that something special was happening, but you just had to wait till the end to confirm it.
Yeah, but well said. The performances are phenomenal. I think you said Hasan Mahmud, like his 6 for in that first innings. It was beautiful bowling. He reminds me of a classic swing bowler that just has enough pace to trouble the batters with his swing and seam movement. His length and lines were phenomenal throughout the game. He almost ended up with a 10 for in the game. And then he was well supported by the other seamers. Keep in mind that Bangladesh entering the series without arguably their best bowler right now in Nahid Rana, who's still figuring himself out as a test match bowler. Um, they got the support from his replacement. Devdutt Hussain came in and he did a good job. He doesn't have Nahid's pace, but he was able to trouble the batters. Taskin Ahmed arguably is Bangladesh's most reliable fast bowler in the last 5 years or so. I would say since Mashrafi Mortaza, who was who is one of Bangladesh's GOAT fast bowlers. I would say since him, like he's been their most consistent bowler. I know there's the Fizz Mustafizur in the white ball game, but he never really found his mojo in the red ball game. But Taskin Hamid plays. I'm pretty sure he plays all formats for Bangladesh, and you can rely on him to hold up one end with the ball. You can rely on him to get a wicket when it's needed. He did that in the second innings. And then in between those two innings with the batting performance from Bangladesh, like you rightly said, Shanto with a magnificent 84. Tanzid Hassan's 100 was phenomenal as well. He's only playing his second test match. And they got contributions from their most reliable bat in Mushfiqur Rahim. They got Mehdi Miraz that scored a 60 as well with the low order, as I mentioned before. So they were just contributions all around.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think, even a more surprising fact is I think one of the stats that we were talking about is I think Australia has won 21 of the last 22 home test match. I think surprisingly, maybe that one loss was against India when Kohli scored that century. But losing to a team like Bangladesh, who really got, let's say not the best tours, 2 tests, starting off in the north of Australia, and, not really like prime, spots like the MSG or, the SCG or the GABA. So this is now going to definitely put pressure on, sort of Australia to maybe take them a little more seriously. So as we look into maybe the second test now, are we going to see a Bangladesh whitewash in Australia?
I have a feeling that Australia's going to definitely come back in this test match. I think we're going to get a more classical Australia wicket with maybe a little more grass, a little more bounce, and it's going to be tough going for Bangladesh. I think this was a wake up call that Australia needed. Could it be the start of the end? Possibly. A lot of these players on the Australian team are on the wrong side of the age group in cricket, right? They're closer to retirement than not, and there's a question marks on some of these guys, and I think it's a good segue to talk about Australia. You can't even say that this is a game where Australia lost. They got beaten. They like it was like I think the TGC guys were saying, everybody had to take their licks, and they definitely had to take their licks in this game. Like it was so comprehensive, where there's question marks on everyone on the team. including the bowlers, including the gold bowlers. I mean, barring Hazlewood, who had a phenomenal performance with his six for, everybody else were pretty much made to look ordinary. I think more than the bowlers, the batters, there's question marks around Marnus Labuschagne at number 3. There's been question marks on his spot. Jake Weatherall apparently is dropped, so the first axe has been swung with him losing his spot, and we have Pat Renshaw coming back in. So I feel that this second Test match, if somehow Australia loses this, they could be careers ending.
That's a great prediction there, because I totally agree there. And maybe one player who maybe saved himself a little bit, Steve Smith, he performed decent. 70 odd in the first innings. He's a guy who knows how to make runs, and this is why in Test cricket, you do need sometimes like these experienced players, because they're able to adapt and play out tricky situations. But I think you raised a really good point there. There had been a lot of question marks on Team Australia this generation, the transition. We've heard all those words, and now before a big Ashes tour, I think before a few different tests that Australia have scheduled for the next few months or not. This, to your point, this is definitely going to add some question marks on sort of who is actually going to be performing or start playing in the Ashes.
Yeah, and even if you leave the Ashes aside for a second, their next assignment is against South Africa in South Africa, against Rabada, against Jansen, against Norkia. These batters are going to be tested so hard, and you're right. I think Steve Smith, there's no way he gets left out of this Australian team. I think he'll always be in a position to retire on his own terms. So I'm not concerned about his performances. I think another guy that saved himself was Cam Green. Cam Green probably booked his spot to South Africa at least with that 100. Definitely got some credit in the bank with that 100. Again, it may be in a losing cause, but he stood up when the others weren't able to. His first 100 on shore, on Australian shores. I know one of us did not like his celebration, but it was a well compiled 100. He stuck it out there. He fought hard. He's been talked about. There's been a lot of pressure on him over the past few years where he really hasn't come of age, if you will. He hasn't stepped into that his role fully, even though he's had performances here and there. It hasn't been as consistent as the Aussies would like. We finally saw a strong performance from him with the bat, where he looked every bit a player that people are saying that he can be.
Yeah, no, like, you got to give it a century is a century in Test match cricket. It's again first one on home soil, 100%. But you kind of smelt it, and you smelled a little desperation in the air as well. I think when he was on 98 or whatnot, he's making Lion dive for his 100. Poor Lion is on the ground while he's about to take his helmet off. I don't know. I thought maybe just acknowledge the crowd. Do not take the helmet off. Your team is, as Taran quoted, is getting licked. You know, let's save the celebrations for maybe later. But no, it was a cool compiled 100, and yeah, you know what? For kudos to Cam Green, he's finding a way to always be in this Australia squad. And I guess he found another way to go to South Africa.
Yeah, and hopefully Australia don't have to wait another 2 years to that next century. Maybe this is the start of Cam Green, the future greatest all rounder of all time. Let's see. Who knows? All right, let's go across the pond, same hemisphere, but on a different island now, the island of Sri Lanka. India playing the first Test match in Galle. I gotta say, one of the most iconic grounds in the world, underrated. You don't realize until you watch, and you realize that it's literally next to a fort that's beside the ocean, and you have like the roads in the background as you're playing. It's actually a phenomenal ground, beautiful. India came into this game with a lot of pressure. They haven't been performing well in tests off late. They had that one series against England, but they didn't win it. It was a tied series. They've had some terrible losses at home. And there've been question marks around the team playing in subcontinental pitches. for some reason. And they come into this game without their star bowler, Bumrah. They are missing some of their other starters, Harshad Rana missing, Sai Sudarshan missing due to injury. And there's a couple others missing as well, Washington Sundar as well. So they have a few players that are fairly new to cricket playing this game. And it's those players that stood out. The two that we have to talk about, and we'll get into more about the game, but what a performance by Devdutt Padikkal. Comes into the game as a replacement for Sai Sudarshan, puts up a phenomenal innings. I think if it wasn't for his innings, this game would have been a lot closer. It's funny, India ended up winning by a few runs more than what Padikkal ended up scoring. So definitely performance by him.
It's good now.
I think his batting was great, but I feel India's found something in Manav Suthar. I think I messaged you about it offline. I've seen enough. I think he's going to be the permanent replacement for Jadeja whenever Jaddu decides to retire and hang up the boots. I think he is going to be 100 test player for India. If India ends up continues to play that many tests, he has it in him with the ball. His consistency is phenomenal. He reminds me of Jaddu with the ball when Jaddu was younger. And with the bat, I've seen enough that he could mold into a Jaddu with the bat. So I was truly impressed. And he's only played 3 test matches, but I know he hasn't faced a strong, quote unquote, strong opposition yet, but he's still playing professional players who are good at cricket. And he is doing well against them.
Yeah, and to your point, you'll go one step further. He's playing against players who should and know how to play spin, right? He's playing in those conditions where players have experience with spin, and he's really getting those those 10 wickets, and it is incredible to see. And I do agree with the Jaddu bowling aspect, 100%. You do want to see him replace Jaddu with that bowling. Hopefully, he does mold into that fielding and batting that Jaddu has. But when it comes to his bowling, I can't believe what I'm seeing. The amount of revs he's getting on the ball, and because of that, it's landing a little inconsistently for some batters. It's spinning a ton as well. He's really, really tough when he's coming around the wicket towards right-handers. He's a tough bowler. He's smart as well. And even if you look at some of the fielding setup as well, he's willing to try stuff out. They're willing to, have game plans, and he's bowling to those game plans. A couple of those wickets, where, catches at I don't know what you call that position behind the batter, way short third. I don't know what you want to call it. Or
forward short leg.
Yeah, forward short leg. And you sort of don't see those positions too often anymore, but it's nice to see them come in and actually work out. But to your point, I think from a bowling perspective, incredible. And I do want to comment real quickly on Devdutt Padikkal as well. Again, he's been one of those players who has been tried and tested in Australia. You see what he's doing. You see the elegance that he has. It's really nice to see him get that fruit now. He's a very classy player. He's in the form of his life as well. And, you do feel a little bit for Sai Sudarshan because now it's definitely tough to look away from Devdutt Padikkal for this tour. And I don't know when maybe the next tour as well. But if he continues to make runs, he looks really good. And to your point earlier as well, he's getting those partnerships that India needs.
Yeah, he's definitely a lock for number 3. This is the importance of scoring 100. Right? We talked about it with Cam Green as well. When you score 100, it's very hard to drop that individual, even if you've come in as a replacement for someone else. Sai Sudarshan has not scored 100 yet. And so Padikkal's innings will help him probably get into the next series over Sai Sudarshan, even if Sai Sudarshan comes back from injury. So yeah, you got to feel for Sai. I think he's still obviously is going to be in and around the squad, and as long as he continues to perform in whatever matches that he plays domestically, I think he'll always be in the first shout. He's equally good as Padikkal. Padikkal just happens to be in better form right now, and he got his opportunity, he took it. So India batted first. I should have probably found out who won the toss. India won the toss, selected to bat. They put up a really clinical performance in that first innings, 462 partnerships all the way through. Unfortunate dismissal for Jaiswal, but great innings from Rahul as well, supporting Devdutt Padikkal. An injury scare there as well, but he was able to come back and bat. A solid innings from Dhruv Jurel, I thought. His 50 was very important. Talking about holding your place in the team, I think all these little performances by Jurel is keeping him in the team. I think he still is a good choice for that number 6 position, and hopefully he eventually scores 100 at some point. Good contributions from the lower order. And then with the ball, very good with in the fast bowling department and in the spin department, as we talked about. Sri Lanka ended up scoring 284 in that first innings. Great 100 by Sonal Dinusha, who we should talk about as well. And then Nirshan Dikwala with 80. I believe he came back into the squad for this game. So good performance by him. Sri Lanka weren't able to come close to India, so India ended up getting a big lead, and that helped them in that second innings. Sri Lanka did fight with the ball restricted into 193, although India were going for quick runs towards the end there. And then, chasing 372, it's not impossible, as England have shown, but it is tough on spinning wickets, and you could see on that day 5 wicket, like the ball was turning. But once again, kudos to Sonal Dinusha with an 84.
Yeah, no, Sonal Dinusha, incredible runs. I think he's very young as well, 25 years of age. He's playing phenomenal, and that partnership with Dickwalla as well, 80 off of 115 balls. You did need that partnership at the end from there, especially in Sri Lanka's first innings to combat that massive score. It did look like perhaps it was going for, a follow-on. I think that's what India probably wanted. But they were able to really push it towards the edge and kind of forcing India to bat and put up a good score. I think what they actually did was they forced India to think about the match winning via time left, right? I think that's when India had to, when India came back for the second innings, they had to mentally play, okay, how much time do we want them to bowl out? When do we finish batting? When do we want to, start the bowling? Is it 10 hours before day? Is it the next day? So I think that partnership really, I wouldn't say put India in a comfortable position, but after India scored the massive first innings total, I think it definitely put them in a less of a winning situation than they were after the first innings. I think it was super important for that partnership there. And India, to the point, if India didn't do play fast enough or whatever, or there was another partnership like this in the second innings, it could have been a draw, which would have been a disaster for Team India.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Sri Lanka in that first innings, that standout bat, Sonal Dinusha, I think they really have someone there at that position. I think it was Harsha that said, yes, it was on a video that I watched where Harsha Bhogle said that the only thing when you bat at 6, which is true, is that you're coming in when the ball is not new. So the ball's been beaten up a little bit. So it is a little easier to bat when you come in the lower order. So it'll be interesting to see how he bats when he gets pushed up the order. And I think I agree with Harsha here that he seems to be a batter that could play for Sri Lanka for a long time. And to be able to score 180 runs in the test match, he was the second best batter amongst both teams outside of Devdutt Padikkal. And he was playing fast bowlers really well. He played the spinners really well. His innings his 100 in the first innings, I feel it was a lapse of concentration that got him out. I think it's because he scored his first 100. I think he could have gone on to score more, and he learned from that. But what was nice to see is he scored that innings. I mean, he scored that 100 with not a lot of boundaries. So it was a lot of graft, a lot of taking singles, rotating the strike, hitting his doubles, and just scoring a gritty 100 that, to your point, got Sri Lanka out of that hole of potentially following on. And so I think India got to plan better against him because he potentially could repeat that performance in that second test match. Just with the way that he bats, like his game seems so simple.
I totally agree there. And I guess we got to give a quick shout out to to Sri Lanka's bowling performance as well. Jayasuriya, 4 for 100 on in India's first innings. Next match being in Colombo, obviously might be helpful for him. So maybe a little more trickier as well for Team India in the second test. There are obviously some other players in Team India that haven't started yet. Sarfaraz Khan, probably, I don't know how well he will do if he comes on. And I don't know how Manav Suthar, because it'll be interesting to see how he plays in Colombo as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big game for Kuldeep Yadav. Kuldeep Yadav, in my opinion, was under-bowled this entire test match.
Okay.
It plays out. I think that will determine whether he gets the nod. But I also am feeling for him because with the emergence of Manav Suthar, I feel that Suthar is already going to be one of the first choice spinners on the team over Kuldeep Yadav. It's already looking like that. It looked like that in that test with Shubman Gill showing more faith in Suthar and Jadeja than Kuldeep. I think if Kuldeep plays, he's got to take a fifer, or it'll probably turn into a situation where he may only once again play on wickets where India take three spinners, and on wickets where it's not fully conducive to spin, we might see Kuldeep being left out for a fast bowler.
Yeah, I do agree with that. It was Kuldeep not getting enough wickets this game. That was definitely a thing that I was looking out for. He is that that wicket-taking bowler. He's been utilized like that in his early career, and it's tough to see him not really being picked for that right now. But to your point, competition is tough right now. Definitely want to see him Colombo. And hey, what we know about Kuldeep Yadav is, hey, he does always come back once in a while. So he may come back now as well.
All right. So do you see India taking the same team for the next test match? Do you see any changes happening to the 11?
No, I don't see any changes. I don't know if they want to maybe rotate some of the fast bowlers. Maybe that's something they could do. But apart from that, I don't see any core changes for Team India. What about yourself? Do you see any new players coming in?
I could see rotation of the fast bowlers. I think Siraj looked good. Prashant Krishna was decent. I know we have our opinions about him, but he looked decent in this game. If anything, maybe Gurnur Brar comes in for one of them. I don't see Siraj being dropped. I think you need some experience there, and Siraj is that guy right now. So you play Siraj, maybe you bring in Gurnur Brar, or maybe you take three seamers if the pitch has something more for the seamers than the Galle pitch. Galle traditionally has been for the spinners, but you could argue that about Colombo too. So I guess we'll see, depending on what the pitch is laid out. From a batting standpoint, again, Jurel's innings was super important because if he failed, then they could have been talks about maybe should you bring Sarfaraz Khan in at number 6, right? He's been piling runs as he always has been doing in domestic cricket. And so maybe there would have been conversations about him coming in. With Jurel scoring a 50 and the rest of the lineup getting runs in, I don't see any changes with the batting order unless there's another injury that happens from now to then.
Do you see perhaps Manav Suthar take another 5-wicket haul?
You know what? I can see that happening. I think his accuracy is his biggest strength, which is what we used to say about we still say that about Jaddu. He was pretty good too, by the way, in this game. Jaddu was pretty good with the ball, although you could say that he was playing second fiddle to Manav. But you could see a little bit of Jaddu of the old, where he was accurate. He was able to spin the ball and then throw his arm balls in between all that. And then you see that with Manav Suthar as well. So they're very similar, yet different in their actions, which make it tough for the batters.
Now, switching gears to maybe looking at other big cricket matches across the world. Pakistan is touring England. Headingley match just started. Who do you see winning that match? Joe Root's first test captaincy back.
Yeah, first test for Marcus Trescothick and the new regime of England. I know Stephen Fleming is not there with the squad just yet, but I'm sure he's somewhere in the background. So it's a big test for England, no pun intended. Even bigger for Pakistan, because they, for some reason, have been super inconsistent in the past several tests in the past couple of years. Or you could say for the longest time you watch Pakistan play cricket, you never know what you're going to get. And the same thing with this test match. I thought Babar was going to play. It turns out, I guess he got injured or sickness or something, and he wasn't playing. And you felt that Pakistan started the game pretty well with the way Abdullah Shafiq was playing, and he looks like a very classical batter. And there was conversations about why he's always in and out of the team, and his record isn't bad in Test cricket. I think he's averaging 40 plus, but he still isn't able to cement his spot in the team. And that's the problem with Pakistan. There's a lot of chopping and changing that happens. So I think it's a big series for them, for the players to find some rhythm and maybe find some consistency in an 11. So right now, I don't know who would win this test match still, even though it's looking like England are ahead. How quite comfortably after day one, because you never know with Pakistan. You might have a phenomenal performance with the ball on day two, and then someone scores a century in the next innings, and then they're finding their way back into the test match. And that's the beauty of test match cricket too, right?
Mhm.
So England look like the favorites right now with this test match, but I'm not putting Pakistan away just yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's still too early to call, but hey, it was also great to see Ollie Robinson performing really well, and Josh Tongue as well, both sharing the ball each, 5 wickets all for each player. But hey, for Ollie Robinson, he's looking dangerous.
Ollie Robinson has found a second lease of life. I don't know where this came from, but people were making fun of him for playing great cricket in Australia, shadowing the Ashes squad back in December. But hey, whatever he's been doing has worked. He's found his place back in the England squad. He played that for one test against New Zealand. He got a man of the match performance there, found himself injured, and now he's back playing again, takes another fifer, potentially match winning performance again. He looks like a bowler that would be hard to face if I'm the Aussie squad looking at potentially who they'd be facing next year in England in the Ashes. I wouldn't want to face Ollie Robinson. He's a classical length and line bowler. He's able to swing the ball both ways, scrambles seam too, so it's hard to pick which way it's going to swing. And his length is phenomenal too. He's able to adjust based on the batter that he's bowling against. And you can see why England rated him high when he first started. And he was phenomenal when he first started. And then he sort of fell off. I think there was talk about his fitness, and then he sort of lost his pace as well and lost his place in the team. Now that he's back, he looks like a lock every time. Like I think that he's that bowler that can hold up one end for England, and then they could unleash Jofra and Josh Tongue at the other end, and Gus Atkinson, the faster bowlers that they can just wreak havoc at the other end.
No, totally agree there. Still pretty lethal England bowling attack there. And hey, the batters are up now. Again, finished day one, still early to call, but does look like England does have the slight upper hand. But hey, as you mentioned, it's Test cricket; anything can happen.
Yeah, England are with an inexperienced squad as well, right? Jordan Cox is, I think, in his second or third test match. And Dan Lawrence is back in the team for England as well, replacement for Stokes. And so he'll be probably a little nervous, second lease of life for him too. So, you can't write off Pakistan just yet. I think England, as it always is now with England, a lot of dependence on Joe Root and Harry Brook. I think if one of them scores big, then it's trouble for Pakistan. But right now, Pakistan, if the first hour or the first session is going to be key. If they are able to sniff out some quick wickets, then they could be back in the match.
We love when Test cricket is back.
Gotta love Test cricket, and there's a lot more coming in. We got the second Test match between Australia versus Bangladesh. We got India versus Sri Lanka second Test match. Obviously, the England-Pakistan Test match going on right now, and the series as well. So a lot more to come with regards to Test matches in the near future. Until then, that stops.